Welcome to Development Book Club. Today we are reading a new book, which is Would You Teach a Fish Climb a Tree? Question mark. Subtitle, A Different Take on Kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and Autism. We're going to cover the first about half of the book today. It's a pretty quick read, and there's lots of interesting things. Let's hop right in. Chapter 1 is called A Word About Labels. And the authors have worked in mental health care for many years, all three of them. So we're about labels. If we describe children by their labels, what happens when we attach a label and then continue to work with someone, we kind of stop thinking and we cut off receiving what's actually happening is the trend. What they have to give or gift to us as people. Instead, we can ask, what is the gift that they have that I am not receiving, instead of labeling somebody. And the idea here is that those who don't function according to the rules and regulations that are in play around them in society or in a school are labeled by their advocates and promoters, of those particular cultures. And there's several anecdotes given of kids on the autism spectrum. The parents who didn't buy into the labels that were placed on their own kids and instead recognized that so much more was possible for their kids than what the experts told them they had. They had kids who didn't never read, talk, write, or relate to people. So they were told, oh, your kids will never do these things. They will never read, talk, relate to people, or write well, or at all. And it didn't happen for the parents that anecdotally, according to the authors, didn't buy into the labeling. And another thing is these kids are often viewed as disrespectful, oppositional, defiant disorder, difficult, or hard to work with. However, at times in agencies, there are magical staff, they say, but staff who are willing to actually see the kids for who they are, not the labels they've been given, and they know the kids are doing their best, the best that they can with the tools that they have. For example, the perspective on a kid with ADHD might be something more like, it's like they have 100 television screens going at the same time in their head, and they're each tuned to a different channel, the volume is turned up, and they don't have a remote to turn it down or switch all the screens to the same channel. And that's sort of their perspective of working and supporting with these kids. And as a bias that we have in our culture that the authors point out, which is that we value, especially in children, place great value on being able to sit still and listen. Is this a bias? Of course it is. And the principle here working with these children is that if you can't say it in 5 words or less, they won't be able to hear you. And additionally, words might not be every kid's preferred form of communication because words are too painfully slow, laborious, and difficult. So there's an energetic communication instead, and through kinesthetic and energy and hands, and not everything is verbal. Question we can ask here is, what if there was really nothing wrong with these kids, and that's what we actually believed, rather than get them to see what we see, change what we see in them, and what changes could that create? What if we are doing harm to these kids with these diagnoses by not acknowledging the abilities that they have? Do they then, based on our assumptions, see themselves as invisible, undeserving, unworthy, not enough, defective, and are wrong, and are weird? But chapter 3 is a question which says, what if your children are perfect? Is there something wrong because they learn differently? What if we saw them as special talented children, not as special needs children? A nice different take they have. And see what's right with them is the idea here. Chapter 4 is creating a culture of questions. And they have an interesting take on questions. And it says, a question is not a statement with a question mark at the end of it. It's an actual question. The purpose of a question with respect to this book is not to find the right answer, but to create awareness of something very particular. So for example, what is this idea of a question is not just a sentence with a question mark at the end of it. So the question, for example, what do you want for dinner, is a statement with a question mark, according to the authors, because it assumes, number 1, the person's hungry, number 2, they plan on eating, and number 3, what they eat will be in the form of dinner. Are you hungry, on the other hand, is a question. So 4 more questions the authors want us to focus on when there are difficult behaviors with the kids that we're dealing with. So what is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? And how can I change it? So again, what is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? How can I change it? Using these questions when we're frustrated with the child can help us to reframe or to actually see what's going on, instead of judging it and working with the child towards a better solution instead. Chapter 5, this is where it starts to get a little esoteric. We are all infinite beings. That means your kids are too. It's title of chapter 5. And the idea here is that an infinite being has the capacity to perceive everything and know everything, be everything, and receive everything. We acknowledge that our kids are infinite beings too, and that just because their bodies are smaller than ours doesn't mean that they are smaller than us. It's an interesting bias that we have because kids are so small. What if we really believe this, is the question. How would we treat children differently if we were more aware of how observant and aware that they actually are, so aware of their observation powers? What do you know that you are pretending not to know or denying that you know? But if you could acknowledge it, would change everything with the kids. So how do we treat them differently? And when facing an uncomfortable question from a child, for example, how did my mom die? This example from the book, we can respond, what do you already know about it? And this is a great, great question. As opposed to giving information, it's receiving information. Chapter 6, what a wolf showed us about how kids on the autism spectrum communicate. There's a story of how wolves see all at once, and so do autistic children. They claim that there is no past, present, and future. They don't have that sort of linear view of time. There's just present, and it's all there, they say. So the need to see the whole movie at once and not being given step-by-step instructions for kids, especially on the autism spectrum, and to do it all at once. Then the authors start talking about how autistic children communicate telepathically with each other and with adults who don't realize it is the children putting thoughts in their own head. Yes. The idea there is that the whole world of nonverbal communication out there is available to us. So we have this idea that whenever your thought just kind of comes to you, they claim that is originated from an autistic child, for example. And chapter 7 continues with the interesting stuff, which, a different take on kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. So true to the title, agree with the content or not, the title does accurately describe what's going on in the book. Communicating with pictures. The idea here is that we communicate our expectations to others through energetic pictures. We send others, and as we think or dread doing mornings or going through a morning routine, for example. So does this mean that all people, not just autistic children, communicate telepathically? And the answer seems to be yes, based on the authors. So remember, if you're going to communicate with a kid with autism, you have to download the whole shooting match or the whole movie for them if you believe in this. Give them everything all at once, not step by step by step. You give them the whole routine, they can pick that up, and because they're so fast. We always try to slow down kids to live in our reality, and this is our mistake. We should instead speed up to where they function, the level that they're at. And they say to start downloading pictures to your kids now, even if they are older. It's never too late, and it's like building a muscle, that whole metaphor. Chapter 9, picking up other people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Picking them up. Here the authors claim that people with OCD are actually picking up on thoughts, etc., of anywhere from an 8 to an 80-mile radius. They don't claim how that mechanism works, but they claim that happens. This makes obsessive-compulsive disorder an ability, so it'd be maybe OCA, not OCD. And ask them, what perception are you having? Kids will pick up on how you're feeling for sure. Okay. Finally, they have a rather rational insight at the end of chapter 8, which is to say that parents who see traumatized children as problems to be fixed, the question here is, what if by acting out all the time with you, your child is helping you do a good job and be a good mom and allowing you to fix the problems she presents you with? What if so much of what she's doing is to show you how much she loves you? I wonder what could change if she was no longer your problem. So when we assume children are a problem, if they're picking up on us and they know we want to be good parents, they will provide us with problems to solve for them as opposed to just being able to live. That's about the first half of Would You Teach a Fish to Climb a Tree? We'll continue next time.